The laughter started softly, like a crack in glass, and then spread across the restaurant until it became impossible to ignore. It was the kind of laughter that carried cruelty in it, the kind that didn't need words to wound. In the corner booth, beneath a flickering light, an old man sat alone with trembling hands and a cheap bowl of soup, completely unaware that in a few short minutes, something would hit the entire restaurant and leave every single person inside forever changed. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a second right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that no one is invisible, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still hurting. The old man's name was Walter Simmons. He was 78 years old, thin as a winter branch, with a coat that had seen better decades. His shoes were worn through at the soles, and his gray hair clung stubbornly to his scalp, as if refusing to give up entirely. He had chosen the restaurant not because it was fancy, but because it was warm, and because on Tuesdays they offered a discount soup that fit perfectly into the careful math of his remaining dollars. The restaurant sat just off a busy highway in Ohio, the kind of place families stopped at without thinking, the kind of place that promised comfort food and normalcy. Walter had once lived a normal life too. Years ago, he had owned a small house, worked in maintenance at a public school, and raised 2 children with a woman who believed tomorrow would always be better than today. But life had not agreed with that belief. His wife passed after a long illness. The house was lost to medical debt, and his children drifted away, not out of cruelty, but out of busyness, distance, and unresolved guilt that slowly hardened into silence. Walter learned to survive quietly, without asking for help, without expecting kindness. That night, the restaurant was full. A group of young professionals sat near the bar, laughing loudly, dressed in confidence and cologne. A middle-aged couple argued softly over menus. A tired waitress named Rachel moved from table to table, her feet aching, her smile fading with every hour of her double shift. She noticed Walter as she refilled his water, noticed the way he folded his napkin carefully, as if manners were the last thing he still owned. She also noticed the way the laughter from the nearby table sharpened whenever their eyes drifted toward him. At first, it was small, a smirk, a whispered comment. Then came the exaggerated coughs and the glances exchanged like inside jokes. Someone mimicked the tremble of Walter's hands when he lifted his spoon. Someone else laughed too loudly, as if daring the room to notice. Walter did notice. His shoulders hunched slightly, his eyes lowered to the soup. He ate faster, not because he was hungry, but because he wanted to disappear before the mockery grew teeth. Rachel felt a knot tighten in her chest. She wanted to say something, but years of customer service had trained her fear better than her courage. She told herself it was none of her business. She told herself the old man would finish and leave, and the night would end like all the others. What she didn't know was that fate had already leaned in closer. As Walter reached for his napkin, his hand slipped. The bowl tipped. Soup spilled across the table and dripped onto his coat. The sound was small, but the reaction was not. Laughter erupted, louder and uglier than before. A chair scraped back. Someone clapped sarcastically. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what the old man would do. Walter froze. His face flushed deep red, and his eyes glistened, not with anger but with something far more painful. Shame. He reached into his pocket for tissues, his fingers fumbling, his breathing shallow. In that moment he looked impossibly small, like a man who had been shrinking for years and had finally reached the size the world preferred. And then it happened. The thing no one expected. The thing that hit the entire restaurant. Walter's knees buckled. At first, people thought he had dropped something. Then his body folded forward, slow and helpless, collapsing against the table before sliding to the floor. The laughter died instantly, as if someone had cut the sound with a knife. Plates rattled. Chairs moved back sharply. Rachel screamed his name without realizing she even knew it, and rushed toward him as her tray crashed to the ground behind her. Panic replaced cruelty in seconds. Someone shouted for help. Someone else fumbled for a phone. Walter lay on the floor gasping, his hand clutching his chest, his eyes wide with fear. The people who had mocked him stood frozen, their faces pale, the weight of their laughter crashing down on them like a sudden storm. An ambulance arrived quickly, sirens slicing through the night. Paramedics worked with calm urgency, lifting Walter onto a stretcher, asking questions he struggled to answer. Rachel rode with him in the back, holding his hand, whispering encouragement even though her voice shook. She didn't know why she stayed. She only knew she couldn't let him be alone again. Word spread fast. By the next morning, a short video recorded by a shaken customer was everywhere. It showed the mocking laughter, the spill, the collapse. It didn't take long for outrage to follow. The restaurant issued statements. The young professionals were identified, their employers notified. But beyond the anger and the consequences, something quieter began to grow. Walter survived. The doctors said stress and exhaustion had pushed his heart too far. Weeks passed in the hospital, then a rehabilitation center. Rachel visited whenever she could, bringing soup, newspapers, and stories from the outside world. She learned about his past, his family, his losses. She also learned that the video had changed everything. Donations poured in from strangers. Letters arrived from people who said they had once laughed too, or stayed silent, and now wanted to do better. The restaurant changed too. A scholarship fund was started in Walter's name. The manager enforced a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. A simple plaque was placed near the entrance, reminding customers that kindness was not optional. Rachel was promoted, not because she had gone viral, but because she had chosen compassion when it mattered. Months later, Walter returned to the restaurant. This time, he walked slowly but steadily, his posture straighter, his coat new but modest. The room grew quiet as people recognized him. Some stood, some wiped their eyes, no one laughed. Rachel greeted him like family and guided him to a table by the window. Sunlight fell across his face, warming the lines that told his story. Before we reach the end, if this story has started to stir something inside you, please pause for a moment and let us know. Like the video, share it, and subscribe if stories like this matter to you. And right now, leave a comment telling us what kindness means to you, or who you think needs to hear this story today. Walter ate his soup slowly this time. He tasted it. He looked around. He saw not pity but respect. He saw strangers who understood, maybe for the first time, that mockery carries weight and silence can wound just as deeply. What had hit the entire restaurant that night wasn't just a medical emergency. It was a truth no one could unsee. As Walter left, supported by a cane and a quiet smile, the room remained still for a moment longer. Then life resumed, softer somehow, more careful. And for those who had laughed, and those who had looked away, the memory stayed, heavy and necessary. If this story touched your heart even a little, please engage with this video one last time. Your likes, comments, and shares help keep these stories alive. Sometimes, the smallest act of attention can be the difference between someone collapsing alone and someone being seen.